Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. So the two movies Black and Blue and Countdown were released in theaters last weekend. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. I said last weekend that it's going to be a relatively weak weekend, quiet weekend because Countdown and Black and Blue were not two major movies that would pull audience in, and judging by the figures at the box office top 10, that it bears that out. Let's start off with number one. Coming in number one is Joker. The movie retook the top spot from Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and pulled in about 18.9 million in its fourth weekend. Domestic gross is about 277 million. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas it pulled in 574 million for a worldwide total of 851 million. And this figure right here, with the 851 million, I believe Joker has surpassed Deadpool and other movies to become the highest grossing R-rated movie ever. So yeah, a movie that Warner Brothers doesn't have a lot of high hopes on. The budget for the movie is only about 55 million, even lower than Deadpool. You remember Ryan Reynolds and that the director, the producers were pressing Fox to make a R-rated Deadpool movie. Remember at the time when superhero movies, or they want to paint a wide net, cast the widest net they could to pull in all the potential audience, because superhero movies are very expensive to make, over 100 million, right? And they wanted to create an R-rated movie, and they only got about 58 million to make Deadpool. And Joker is in the same boat as Deadpool. Warner Brothers were really reluctant to make this movie because of the themes involved. This is about a guy who went crazy, like to watch the world burn, and he's a murderer pretty much, right? And it got 55 million for this movie, right? Reviews, right? Is not as high as some of the Marvel movies, only about 59% on the tomato meter, on at Rotten Tomatoes, and a B+ cinema score. So not that highly reviewed, but you know what? It is drawing in an audience. It's bringing the audience domestically with 277 million and going. It recaptured the top spot from Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and overseas it pulled in like 574 million, and 851 million worldwide, right? So the question is, could it cross $1 billion? I don't think it opened in China yet. I don't know if this movie will ever get a release in China, but if it does, it could cross the 1 billion mark easily, I think. All right, let's move on to number two, which is Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, the sequel to the 2014 movie of stars Angelina Jolie as the fairy, evil fairy. From her perspective, this is the one is this movie is kind of like the Joker, right? They want to cast a sympathetic light to the evil character, what made them tick, what made them turn into this evil person, right? And this is a movie that I thought could probably open somewhere in the 55 to 60 million range, but it opened way lower than that, almost half. It opened to 36 million on a 185 million budget, right? And in the second weekend, it pulled in about 18.5 million in the second weekend, so a little bit lower than the Joker, but these are estimates, by the way. It could be, when it's all said and done, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil could end up with the top spot, because there's only a couple hundred K separating the two movies, right? So we don't know which movie will end up on top when everything is said and done. So after 2 weekends, domestic gross is 65 million for Mistress of Evil, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas it did way better, 229 million for a worldwide total of 294 million. So with the $185 million budget, right, it has to do very well overseas, because it looks like it's flailing here. It's not doing that well domestically. It needs a lot of work overseas to make up the budget. Moving along to number three is the Addams Family, the animated version, by the way. In its third weekend, it pulled in about 11.7 million. Domestic gross is 72 million thus far, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 11.2 million for a worldwide total of 84 million. It looks like it hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. But then again, like I say, overseas market and animation, unless you're one of these bigger studios, like Pixar, DreamWorks, and others, right? Disney. The grosses might not be that high, especially for something so American as the Addams Family, right? As domestic as the Addams Family. So Addams Family might not travel well overseas. All right, number 4 is Zombieland Double Tap, which is the sequel to the, I think, 2009 movie. I said this movie is a reunion of sorts. We got Woody Harrelson back. We got Emma Stone back. Jesse Eisenberg, Abigail Breslin. They're all here. The writers, directors, they're all back into this Double Tap. And, from the reviews, they say, this is pretty much the first movie, except there's more of them, right? Reviews-wise, it's not as good as the first movie. 68% on the tomato meter and a B+ cinema score. And in the second weekend, the movie dropped to pull in 11.6 million. Again, it's very close to the Addams Family, so who knows when the actuals comes in, it could end up being the third movie. That's how close these movies are between them. All right, so in the second weekend, domestic gross is about 47 million, and let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in 16.6 million for a worldwide total of 63.6 million. With a budget of 42 million, Zombieland 2 is actually doing decent. All right, moving along to number 5 is one of the new releases last weekend, which is the horror movie Countdown. This is a movie about an app where people install it, and this app tells how much time that person has left, and once it reaches 0, this supernatural ghost or whatever come and kill him, kill that person. This is a movie that I said could probably open somewhere in the 8 to 10 million range, and it fell, the opening for this movie fell within that range, 8.8 or 8.9 million in its opening frame. So far, this is a movie from STX Entertainment, which is doing very well recently, especially horror movies, and this is one of them. So, teenagers or fans of, horror movies with blood and guts, gore in particular, have something to watch in theaters. All right, number 6 is the other new releases last weekend, and that is Black and Blue, the thriller starring Naomi Harris as a rookie cop who witnessed a murder by fellow cops, and she's on the run from both these cops and the local gang. And this is a movie that I was too bullish on. I was wrong. I said this movie could probably open somewhere in the 10 to 15 million range, but it opened lower, 8.3 million for Black and Blue, even lower than Countdown, but not too far off. I said this these movies, crooked cop movies, usually don't open that well. I said in the 2010 movie Brooklyn's Finest opened to around 13.3 million. This one 10 to 15, which is within that range. And Black and Blue, Naomi Harris, like I said, not someone who could draw in the crowds to these theaters. And there are still the movie to beat Joker and Maleficent as well as Zombieland and Addams Family, some of the old favorites from the previous weeks. All right, number 7 is the Will Smith action thriller Gemini Man. In its third weekend, it pulled in about 4.1 million, and the domestic gross is about 43 million. Wow, it's bombing hard, but it's doing a little bit better worldwide. It pulled in about 105 million for a worldwide total of 148 million. Unfortunately, this movie cost about 138 million to make, so it has ways to go overseas. So it doesn't look like it's gonna make any grounds here. It looks like it's gonna close out somewhere maybe in the 55 to maybe 60 million range or so, when it's all said and done here domestically. It's bombing hard here for whatever reason, right? It's Will Smith. It's only action. For some reason, this movie is failing at the box office. It could be the reviews. I mean, only 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, a B+ cinema score. But with these big action movies, sometimes reviews don't have that much of an effect on big blockbusters. But like I said, we have to go way back to 2012 to see a Will Smith movie crack 100 million at the box office. And that's with him starring in the lead role, by the way, not him in ensemble like Suicide Squad. All right, number 8 is The Lighthouse. It expanded to, added 578 theaters. In its expansion, it pulled in about 3 million. In its second weekend in expansion, domestic gross is 3.6 million, and I don't believe it opened overseas yet. And this is not, I don't think this movie would be huge overseas because it's in black and white. It only stars like 3 characters. There is William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, and there's also a mermaid played by Valeria Karaman. And yeah, only these 3 characters, but most of the time it is Dafoe and Pattinson trapped in this lighthouse. It took place back in the 1800s, and it's this thriller about what happens when I guess when 2 men isolated this mermaid as well. And it's very well reviewed, 92% on the tomato meter. So this is a movie for art house lovers, right? Black and white, minimal characters. The Lighthouse is directed by Robert Eggers, who directed The Witch, made his directorial debut with The Witch, and this is his second major feature. And yeah, it's doing actually pretty well. Okay, number 9 is the Current Wars Director's Cut. It pulled in about 2.7 million in its opening weekend, I believe. This is a movie that stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Holland, Nicholas Hoult, Michael Shannon, about Tesla. Let's see, Westinghouse, Edison, 3 major characters in history, who is trying to become, I guess, the standard for, electricity, how to deliver electricity, in the new world, in the coming world. And this is their gripping tale. Their fight to see who would come out on top. Reviews-wise, it's not that great, right? About 59% on the tomato meter, but it stars some really great actors in this movie. And 2.7 million is a pretty good opening for a movie that is not known to open wide. And let's see if it could attract more attention later on. I mean, the reviews, it's not something that would say, hey, let's check this movie out, but hey, this movie stars some great actors, so maybe that is a huge draw, as people, this is a movie that people would not rush out to check, but might want to check out later on during the quieter holiday season. All right, let's close out the top 10 with Abominable, the latest DreamWorks animation about group of teenagers trying to get a Yeti home. This movie pulled in about 2 million in its 5th weekend. Domestic gross is 56.8 million. It's not doing that well domestically here. Let's see how it did overseas. Overseas, it pulled in about 87.8 million for a worldwide total of 144 million. The budget for this movie is 75 million, so kind of broke even there. So let's see how much more it can eke out from the overseas market. Alright, that's it for the box office top 10. Let's move on to the new releases this weekend. We're going to have 4 wide releases, but the top of the pile is Terminator Dark Fate, the latest Terminator movie. Then we have Motherless Brooklyn, a movie that Edward Norton stars, direct, I believe wrote as well. Then the animation Arctic Dogs, and then Harriet, a movie about Harriet Tubman. Alright, let's start off with Terminator Dark Fate, the latest Terminator movie, directed by Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, right? Linda Hamilton returns, Arnold Schwarzenegger is here. A movie that is produced by James Cameron. The thing about this latest Terminator movie is this is the last Terminator movie that's going to be produced outside of James Cameron's hands. I think 2019 is when the rights reverts back to James Cameron. So James Cameron, he could do whatever he wants with it now. How is this movie doing at the reviews wise? Initially, the initial reviews was like, this is kind of like a return to form for the Terminator franchise. But then, more views comes in and they say, oh, okay, this movie is not that great. So on Rotten Tomatoes right now is 67% on the tomato meter, which is not that great. for, I guess, for such an anticipated movie, right? This one has like James Cameron's name attached to it. Linda Hamilton is in here. Schwarzenegger returns. Cameron as a producer, I mean, he has some ideas for this movie, right? And I guess they're gonna try to follow it. And Tim Miller is off to a great start with Deadpool, and he's directing this movie. So great credits there, great cast, but only 67% on the tomato meter. But again, this is a franchise. You know, the previous movies was Genisys, Terminator Genisys. This is a franchise that is, you know, lacking in that je ne sais quoi that James Cameron brought, right? And he's back in this movie. People are, you know, rightly are anticipating this movie, but you know, is this the movie that they're looking for? I mean, a tomato meter of 67% does not give me that much hope. Let's check the details. Terminator Genisys opened to 27 million, went on to make about 90 million domestically, 350 million overseas, for a worldwide total 440 million. And let's go back to a James Cameron movie, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Opened to 31 million, went on to gross 205 million domestically, 315 million overseas, for a worldwide total of 520 million. But this is way back in 1991, where, you know, the box office is not as huge as today, and you know, there's inflation involved and all that jazz. And then there's Terminator 3, which opens to 44 million, went on to make 150 million domestic and 283 million, for a worldwide total 433 million. So yeah, as you can see, none of the Terminator movies broke 50 million in an opening weekend, for its opening weekend. It's possible for this one, since they're gonna advertise the heck of this movie as you know, that James Cameron's back, Arnold is back, of course, Linda Hamilton is back. So what are we thinking? How well will this movie open to? You know what? I think given the buzz, it's probably going to open somewhere in the 50 to 55 million range. All right, let's move on to Motherless Brooklyn, a movie that is written, stars, and produced by Edward Norton. Right, it's set in the 50s. Norton stars as a detective with Tourette syndrome, you know, who's out to solve a murder of his mentor and friend. Bruce Willis is in this movie. Willem Dafoe's in this movie. Alex Baldwin, as well as Leslie Mann and Bobby Cannavale. Was it Bobby Cannavale? Yeah. Okay, Bobby Cannavale. You know, budget is about 26 million for this movie, 60% on the tomato meter right now. Not a huge movie that would draw in the crowds. So it's probably gonna open somewhere in the 3 million-ish range or so. Okay, up next is Arctic Dogs, a movie that is distributed by a generically named studio, Entertainment Studios, that's the name. It looks like this studio bought the rights to this movie and released it here. I don't believe this movie is getting a huge advertisement push. Arctic Dogs is about a delivery dog voiced by Jimmy Renner, who wants to be the top dog in this delivery service, and it also features the voices of James Franco, Angelica Houston, Alec Baldwin, John Cleese, he's the bad guy in this movie, Omar Sy, Heidi Klum, among others. So, you know, there's a lot of voice talent, or named voice talents, in this movie. But I don't, you know, without a big advertising push, I don't think this movie is going to open well. So even though it has lots of name talents in this movie, it's probably going to open somewhere in the 10 to 15 million range for an animation. All right, finally is Harriet. This movie is about Harriet Tubman, her journey to become the freedom fighter that she is. The title character is played by Cynthia Erivo, I believe that's how you pronounce, Erivo. Erivo. Okay. I don't think this movie will open huge. Most of the focus is going to be on Terminator Dark Fate as well as some of the larger leftover movies. So like Motherless Brooklyn is probably gonna open somewhere in the 3 million range as well. Alright, that's it for this week's video. Tune in next week to see how it did. Until then, take care, bye bye.